Israel can manage the defense of Israel alone. Israel can continue to do serious damage to Iran's military assets, its military leadership, and its nuclear program, with the exception of Fordo. That is the big question mark. Fordo, as you know, is this enrichment capability or asset that's deep, hunkered down into bunkers, basically, very hard to access. And it's not, I mean, the Israelis say they have some capabilities that could tackle Fordo. They've done Natanz. The question is, can they do Fordo? They say they have capabilities to do Fordo. The U.S. definitely has the capacity to do Fordo. I think Israel's capabilities are probably there, but they will be messy and they will take longer. And I think the U.S., if the U.S. participated in some way, would be a much cleaner shot.
So we've heard a lot from the president so far today. And I think it was yesterday when he said unconditional surrender, or perhaps that was Monday. Things are running together. But significant that J.D. Vance said this yesterday. People are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy. But I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue. He's only interested in using the American military to accomplish American people's goals. Is the administration getting warmer to the possibility of war? Yes.
Well, they've already gotten warm to the possibility of war because there is a war going on that the U.S. supports. The only question is one Republican U.S. Senator put it to me the other day, who has been talking to President Trump. He said, to finish this off, Israel has done all the difficult, dirty work. It has cleared the path now for the U.S. to come in the end and finish it off. Israel could probably finish it off, as I said earlier, which is, again, Fordo.
Let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba and senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube, where Secretary Hegseth is testifying this morning on Capitol Hill. Also with us, New York Times chief White House correspondent Peter Baker and NBC military analyst, retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey. Monica, what do we know about the military options being discussed right now by Trump's national security team?
Well, we know that there was a lengthy meeting yesterday in the Situation Room with the president and his top national security advisors, where he was
But he said Israel's chance of success doing it on its own is much lower. If the U.S. finishes it off, the success rate is 90% plus.
So on that, what is the calculation on behalf of the commander-in-chief? If this does not go as planned, if it goes sideways, not just in Iran, but our military installations throughout the Middle East, or perhaps Americans who are living abroad or even here at home. Keep in mind, we had
presented with, and they discussed a range of options. And this would include everything from continuing to do what the U.S. is doing now, which is to provide Israel with this defense support as they continue to intercept missiles and drones from Iran, or go on the offensive and try to join Israel in providing some kind of military support with strikes in Iran, specifically targeting those outstanding nuclear facilities. And that is something, of course, that the president was maybe hinting at with some of his social media posts yesterday. And then there's another option, which is a combination of helping Israeli jets potentially to refuel or from other supported
by Iran, directly by the Iranian military. They run rabid all over the world, threatening American interests. So this is the best shot President Trump has since the revolution in 1979 to put the Iranian threat away. He would be the president that makes this thing go away. If he did, the man would deserve the Nobel Peace Prize.
Last question. The Supreme Leader was out 3 hours ago. He rejected surrender. He rejected unconditional surrender, whatever the phrase was at the time. What
offensive capability to fire missiles at Israel, although Israel's taken some hits. Russia isn't going to intervene on their behalf. Their proxies are devastated. The Houthis, Hezbollah, the Syrian regime's knocked out, so they're in trouble. I think a lot of this is just a mugging of Iran in public to try and force them to negotiate. May or may not work. President's language is simply outrageous. Unconditional surrender, 1945. Who do they surrender to? Us. We might assassinate the Ayatollah. A lot of it, I think, does add pressure on the Iranians, but it's a bizarre situation.
And we're seeing these sort of dramatic pictures inside Iran from recent attacks just in the last 24 hours there. Lots of fire, lots of smoke. Let's say the U.S. does take this military action, General, if they drop this 30,000-pound bomb. Could it be a one-and-done attack for the U.S., or is it just never going to be that simple?
I would not think that we would send a lone B-2 bomber in. By the way, we've got exquisite intelligence on this underground facility. The 5 giant tunnels, we know where the air ventilation shafts are, the entrances are. You'd probably have to drop a series of these 30,000-pound weapons, one after another on the same strike point. But at the end of the day, until the Iranians decide to end a nuclear program that's been going for over 2 decades, they're really, all we can do is pause the whole action. And of course, there's when you elect war as your choice, it may be a smart decision at the time. The question then becomes, where's it all going?
How cards does he have today?
Look, I don't think he has many. On my podcast this morning, I interviewed an expert who's lived in Iran, who's Kareem Sajapour, who's an expert on Iran. He says he can't think of any cards Iran has right now. And the problem is with the supreme leader is he's old, he's dug in, he's deeply ideological, and he's really uncompromising. The Iran deal he did in 2015 with Obama, which was an enormously generous deal to Iran, was considered by him a massive capitulation. This is not a man who wants to make real concessions. So unfortunately, Iran does not have many cards right now. And for the Iranian people, what's tragic is they have a leader who's in his 80s and does not seem to be prepared to change his ways.
Day 6, and we push you on. Dan, it's great to get your
Great to be with you, Bill.
analysis today.
Thank you.
Dan Senor, thanks. How many millions of people walk across that border for 4 years?
I think the big question for the president is, if this doesn't wrap up cleanly and soon, you will have this war dragging on. Right? Israel is not going to pull back, and presumably Iran is not going to pull back. What does that look like? What does that look like to Israel? What does it look like to Iran? And what does it look like to the region? A. B. Never forget that Iran has been a threat to the United States and the West for decades. I mean, literally after Al-Qaeda, you can't think of a bigger source of terrorism. You can't think of an entity or a country that has more American blood on its hands than Iran. American military, I saw it firsthand in Iraq, where they were killed by terrorist support.
Positioning, and there's also the option, the president says, of, again, doing nothing at all. And that is what he just spoke to in this lengthy Q&A with reporters on the South Lawn, where he said, quote, "I may do it, I may not," when he was asked if he had made a decision coming out of that meeting. So he really was joking in a sense by saying, do you think I would tell you? And do you think I would tell you at what time we plan to bomb Iran, if that's what we ended up deciding ultimately to do? So he didn't want to get into any of the specifics, but he did reveal a little bit of new information that requires some more reporting on, which is that he says the Iranians have reached out to him directly, to the White House, and that some officials to come to the White House, to come to Washington, to perhaps continue some conversations. It's unclear exactly what he meant by that, but it kind of bolsters this idea that he's been trying to present, that he thought there was still a potential path for a diplomatic solution here. But at the same time, the president also just told reporters that that call or that outreach from the Iranians is very different now than it was a week ago. He continues to say that had this been a week ago, or had they tried to take the deal or be more of a player returning to the table in these negotiations to curb Iran's nuclear capabilities, that maybe some sort of outcome could be reached. But he's saying short of that now, with the fire that's been exchanged between Israel and Iran over the last 5 or 6 days, that seems less likely. And then he went into a lot of other tangents about the Fed chair, about immigration, and about what he's out there to do, which is to witness this